Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's Wednesday night. Must be time for Material Issues, episode number 93 of this wonderful weekly program. I'm Mark Hershberger of Pop Detective Records. I'm over here on the East Coast, and by the magic of the internet, we're joined by my very good friend, the president of International Pop Overthrow, Mr. David Bash. David, how the heck are you for episode number 93?
I'm doing fine, Mark. How are you?
Good. I just all of a sudden felt very Casey Kasem like right there. I'm not sure why, but I was ready for
Well,
the
Jackie Fox said you were a great presenter, so there
yeah.
you go.
I
There's
mean
your bonus.
that was a very nice compliment.
It
I
was. Well,
remember
it's true.
that. And she has been
Yeah,
posting a lot lately about how she quote humbled David Bash on the trivia.
she has not, but she certainly did humble me. Although
I think she's going to want a rematch.
I would love to. I mean, I have nothing to lose at
Which
this point, so she can have one. Yeah, unfortunately, I lost yet another crown. I had crowns put in 30 years ago, and now time and tide is causing them to break off. So I lost one right here, and I'm going to have to get the remains extracted. I have a lot of dental work I need done. It's really bad, and I've only put it off because it's so freaking expensive.
Well, it's expensive. It's time consuming. Of course, there's a little discomfort to it, but
that part I can deal with.
Yeah, you just got to get it done. You got to get it done.
Well, I just got to be able to afford it. Which
I know. Dental health is important. It affects a lot of things. So.
Plus it it kind of hurts right now a little bit.
Yeah. We've never gone down the dental route here on Material Issues, so that's a first for us. So. What are you listening to recently? I wanted to tell you I picked up Straighten Your Mind, the Jarvis Humby new CD, which is really good.
Pretty good.
It's very good. You probably have these already, but Can the Glam 2, the Teenage Glam page
do have
box.
That, yes. I do.
I've only broken the surface on a lot of that great music. And what's this one? What a Groovy Day.
Oh my God. Set. Well, that is classic.
Pop is just amazing. So the fact that a lot of this stuff I've known of its existence, many of these artists, but there's so many that you go, I never heard this before.
Yeah. I mean, I'm considered a soft pop, sunshine pop expert, and I haven't heard a lot of what's on these boxes. A lot I have, but
don't know where it comes from.
About half of it. Well, I mean, it was. I think now because of the whole public domain thing, it's been easier to license it.
Right.
In the past, it was hard to do. So yeah, I have that, and I have the Tony Rivers compilation.
Oh, nice.
Which you definitely want to get.
I want to get that.
No doubt about it. And I just got this today. It just showed up in the mail. Wattstack 72, the Soul Woodstock from 3 years later, and I cannot wait to dig into this. Yeah, it's all live like Woodstock was. Plus, this edition has extra tracks from different clubs. They weren't able to fit. Apparently, they weren't able to finish the show, so they had to do the rest of it at different clubs. Also live, of course.
Who put that out?
It's got all these bonus tracks. But yeah, I just got it in the mail this morning, so I haven't had a chance to hear it yet. But
who put that out, David?
Oh, Kraft.
Kraft.
Kraft Concord, the label that reissued the Big Star albums and a bunch of other stuff. So,
oh wow,
yeah. So that one just came in the mail.
We're sitting here nerding out on some of this old stuff. This is fantastic. Yeah, I love it.
This is why we probably do need an episode with just us, so we can nerd out on stuff. And
gosh darn it, we got to stop getting these great guests. Is the problem?
I know that's the problem. We keep getting great guests, and today's is certainly no exception. She's somebody who, if you watch TV in the 70s and 80s, you saw her a lot, but like every character actor out there, you would see her and you'd say, I know her, but what's her name? you would do that all the time. There were a lot of, like Jesse White, for example, was a character actor who you'd see on everything, but
right.
and you'd know his face, but not his name. Yeah, she was on all kinds of shows on TV. She also did several movies, and I've been using the word "did," which really is a misnomer here, because she still does.
Yes.
And in fact, she appeared on an episode of Poker Face, which is the new hit on Peacock. You have to have a paid subscription to Peacock to see all the episodes. I saw episode 1, and I definitely need to get a paid subscription now, because I want to see the rest. Stars Natasha Lyonne, who she's one of a kind. There'll never be I mean, she may not be the greatest actor ever, but she's really, really good. But she's unique.
She's unique. It's the word.
I can't. Yeah, I can't imagine anyone else like her. Anyway, our guest was on episode 5 of that, so she's still doing it. And also, she's the mom, for music fans out there. She's the mom of Christy and Kelly Callan, founding members of the great band Wednesday Week, who has appeared at International Pop Overthrow a few times, and we're very grateful for that. Anyway, without further ado, would you please give a huge Material Issues welcome to K Callan?
Hi there.
Hi. Thank you so much for appearing.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Very, 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 very nice to see you. And I just said the word I was going to ask you about, because I put it into my head. David and I were talking before we went live that I'm very conscious that I do not use that when I'm thinking. I do it all the time. It's just something that's in my head. And as an actress, is that something you're very conscious of, the little things in between sentences and your thoughts, and you're thinking of the script and whatnot? Is okay?
No, you can't just say on set. I mean, first of all, you've got everything they've written, and you're supposed to say it like that. And you may do some other time wasting thing while you're thinking of something. You may do some business or something, but I don't think I use that much. I may do a few of the things I heard you all talking about, and like that. But I'm not too sure I use I have other time wasters. Let me get my point, and I will say something in the meantime.
Did they ever build those words into a script?
Oh yeah, they would, to show where that character is. It's like he doesn't know what to say, and he's nervous, and he's just filling time. But that's in the script, and
right.
And if you put it in there, then that adds something to your character, unless your character is going through that and it's a perfectly legitimate improvisation.
Well, David and I are not actors. We do just play them on TV, but I had to get that in. But that's something that I've always been curious of. If you are sticking to a script and you're saying the words, and you happen to say, but would they say cut? That's not in the script. And
it depends on the set. Like if you're on an Aaron Sorkin set, you say the instead of the. It's like cut. You have to say every single thing right. And once I was on an episode of After MASH, which was a sequel to MASH. And they were like that on that set. Don't say the, you say the. And it's really, and that was like I was young. I have to worry about memory things then, although I still have my memory, whatever else may be missing. But I remember that's all I could think of all day was saying the lines in it. Is it the? Is it the? And so you can't really allow whatever's going on in the scene unless you make a note in your mind that your character is like very worried about whether they're going to say the or the.
How often do you ad lib? And when you do, how often is that just left in? Like a director might say, "Oh, that's better."
Oh, sometimes people, well, for instance, this episode I did a Poker Face with Natasha Lyonne, I had this, and she's a big improviser. And see, for instance, I'm there as a guest. So, I shouldn't improvise. People who are regulars, you can improvise. You're part of the family. But as a guest, you just came into their house and you got to do what they do. But she improvised and did something, then I reacted to it, and then that was fine. But there are places you can and places you can't. And then sometimes they may be shooting and you just don't know, and you're putting something in to keep it going and not ruin the tape. But I remember once I was doing a play down at South Coast, and I was working with an actor. His character name was Justin, and his real name I can almost get, but I can't, but we'll call it John. Yeah. And so in the scene, I'm supposed to say, well, Justin, but I look at him and I go, is he Justin or is it John? So I just didn't call him anything. Well, names are always hard. I mean, they're hard for me in real life. I'll know people really well, and then you will come up and I'm going to introduce you to them, and it's like, I can't remember their name all of a sudden.
Yeah, I know people's dogs better than I know their names. I know the dogs' names. Everybody in the 10-block radius, I can tell you what their dog's name is, but
well, because people say that name all the time. Mm-hmm. You know, there's Scott, you know, come over here. Yeah.
Now I know on your website you have the poker face reel of the episode that you're in. So it's no mystery when I say it's an interesting conversation that you have on the phone with Natasha. Just from an acting standpoint, and we don't get to talk to that many actors on here, but who are you responding to when you're acting in a scene like that on the telephone?
Well, that's always different. I mean, maybe the actor's on the set and feeding you lines like you're on the phone. And then maybe they're not there and the AD is saying the lines, you know. And then maybe in some cases where it's really great, the actor will be on the set, but they'll be someplace else and it'll really come through the phone. But most of the time you don't see the other side of the conversation like you see it with Natasha in that scene. And in those kind of scenes, in my mind, I say the words that person would be saying to me. So I've got time to say the proper response to them. You see sometimes, you know, and it's such a fake thing because they're not waiting for the other person long enough to say what, of course, they had to have said.
Yeah.
Mark, forgive me here. You're freezing on your video.
He's not online. I see him. It's fine.
Yeah, I see him.
Yeah, I must be having some issues here. Are you seeing me fine?
Yeah, we see you. We hear you fine. It must be just your video on your screen. So just
well, the reason I'm bringing it up is your video's lagging behind your audio, which means I may interrupt you because I won't know that you've spoken yet. So please forgive me. But anyway, Kay, the reason I contacted you in the first place was I used to see you occasionally at your daughter's shows that I was hosting. And I recognized you, but I recognized you more than just somebody who came to shows. I thought I knew you from somewhere. And then somebody on Facebook posted about a show called Sarah, starring Gina Davis. And I'd never heard of it. I knew about Buffalo Bill that she was in, but not Sarah. Right. So I thought I've got to check this out. So there was an episode on YouTube and I'm watching it. And suddenly a woman comes in who's playing her mom. And it's like, oh my God, I know her. And then I realized that I had seen you on a lot of other things. And then I saw the credits and I saw your name. So that's why I contacted you. It finally all came together in my head. But did you think at that time, this was when Gina Davis wasn't known. Did you see the greatness in her? Did everybody see it?
She was already known. She had done Tootsie. That's how she ended up.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, not on TV.
That's what made her. And she'd been she has a really interesting memoir that I listened to. She reads it herself. What an interesting person she is. But before that, I mean, she had always, it's a great story. She always wanted to be an actor, but as many people who want to be actors, they don't really know how you would go about doing it. I can act, but how would they find me? So she went to New York and she started working as a model. Well, after a while, she worked as a model. But before she did, she was working. I loved this story. She was working at Lord & Taylor. And one of the things was she was supposed to do the windows. And so she's a very mischievous person. And the window had a table and chairs, and it was set up like a cafe. And so one day she just went in, stepped into the window and sat there like she would, and just stayed still. and then people would come, and then, and then they thought, well, this is the thing. And so then they started having her do that in the window, which I thought was just great. But anyway, she worked her way into the business and then became a model. And then I think as a model, because they were looking for somebody who was fabulous looking like that and so forth. And so she did Tootsie.
Oh, yeah, I'd totally forgotten about that.
Yeah.
I was just, how did you get into it all? Did you want to be an actor from when you were a child? Did it come later?
Ever since I can remember, that's what I wanted to do. I lived on movies. I went to movies all the time. My sister was a big fan. She's like 10 years older than I was. And she had movie star pictures. I mean, there was no wallpaper because she would subscribe to Photoplay and every one of the like fan magazines, and she wouldn't tear the pictures out or cut the pictures out. She would open them. She would take out the staples so they wouldn't be hurt. And she had one on top of another, all these pictures in there. So we went to the movies all the time, but mainly it was Betty Grable movies. Of the many movies, because, and this is when I go back to say people don't know how they would get into it. I only really realized recently that it wasn't just that I saw Betty Grable in all these movies, but they were always showbiz movies, but she was always auditioning. So in my mind, I knew there was a concept that was auditioning, so that when I started thinking about how to do it, I looked in the Dallas phone book, are there agents in Dallas and so forth. So, but anyway, from the time I was a kid, I was in plays in grade school, I was in plays in high school, and then college. And then, that was always what I was going to do.
Is there a movie from your youth that really made you go, oh my gosh, and sticks with you to this day as one of the first movies that just blew your mind and turned you on to everything?
No, that's because people tell those stories about the movie that knocked their socks off, but they're like had never seen movies before, and the first thing you see really makes an impression. But they were all just the other thing is at my age, when I was growing up, it was like, what were your options to do?
Right.
And it's not like, for instance, I really love fabric. I sew. I used to sew. I don't sew as much as I used to, but I love fabric. I have as much fabric in my house as if I were Joanne's. You could come over here and shop. But I thought if I had known there was a job where you could play with fabric all day, maybe I would have done that. But here I could see Betty. I saw a role model, and I saw something that seemed like fun. And so, as time went on, it was like Doris Day movies when I was in high school and like that. But I really think it was Betty who put it in my mind, plus my sister with all that movie star stuff. But I always wanted to do it. And, it never occurred to me it wouldn't work out. I trained for it, I worked, and then I accidentally started teaching school at the Girls Catholic High School that I had graduated from. And when I started teaching, the kids who were seniors had been freshmen when I was there. So that's how young I was. And at the end of that year, I was going to go to New York because I didn't go back to school that year because I had gotten another job, at a professional theater, and it didn't occur to me I could go back to school once I quit. But anyway, I was going to go to New York at the end of that year, and then I ended up not going. I fell in love with teaching, and I stayed, for my kids, and then I got married, and I had 3 kids. So now it's like 11 years later, and I get divorced, and I have 3 small children, and I'm going to New York by myself. And it just never occurred to me it wasn't going to work out. It just never crossed my mind.
Wow. And so you didn't choose to go to Hollywood first? I thought
you go to New York to become a New York actor first, to become a real actor. That's the path for at least people in my generation. You need to go to New York because I was a theater actor. That was how I grew up, and that was
right. Yeah, that makes sense.
And so you go to New York, and it was really hard sometimes. But it never occurred to me it wouldn't work out. And
so you're a young actor packing up 3 small children and just moving to New York?
Well, I wasn't young relative to New York terms. And I was like 32. I was too old to do that. But luckily, I didn't know that. But the other thing is, to be fair, in Dallas, even though when I got married, I gave up acting as a goal and so forth, I did commercials and things because the only way I could rationalize acting was if I got paid and brought money into the marriage. And so I had learned how to not just do commercials, but pursue them. I would call, small film companies and see, do you do commercials, and can I meet the casting director and like that. And I did all the jobs, when I was in high school. I'm sorry, I have such a thing in my throat. When I was in high school, I wrote all my MGM heroes to ask how you become an actor. How do you get in? And they all wrote me back. They all wrote me handwritten letters back. And I can't remember. I can't no, in those days, but the thing is, I wish I could remember. There were 3 of them that I wrote and that wrote me back. And the only one I remember for sure was Marge and Gower Champion were big stars in MGM musicals. And she and whoever else wrote me back, they all said the same thing. They said, do as much as you can do in your own hometown. Sing at the Lions Club, do whatever you can do before you go to New York. So I had been doing stuff there that I could do, and I had done commercials. So that when I went to New York, before I knew I was moving there, I went to visit my cousin. But I always, an actor always takes their book with them and they're real. And so I saw something in a New York paper, the trade paper, that said they were looking for young housewife and mother types. So I went to this agent's office and I said, hi, I'm K Callan. And she said, how much longer are you going to be in town? I don't know whether I said I was from out of town, but she said, how much longer you're in town? And I said, 2 more hours, because that was in the day when you could just go get on a plane. And she was like, well, will you come back if I get you some meetings? And I can't believe, obviously I didn't know how things worked, or I would never have said this, but I said, well, I'll come back, but I'm not going to spend 3 weeks and see 2 people. If you can get me a bunch of people in a short amount of time, I can't believe that. So anyway, she did call me. I did go back, and she got me 5 in the week. She got me a meeting with 5 casting directors. Out of those 5 casting directors, I got 3 auditions and 2 commercials. I've never had such a good record since then. But so by the time I had no idea I was going to get divorced at all at that time. But by the time I did, I was going to New York. I had an idea that I would work. It was still really hard the first year, because then it was just a lark to me. I didn't need it. It was like, isn't this fun? But when I got there, I was the sole support of my family. And so I was much more uptight, certainly at the beginning, than I became. And you got to work your way into the system anyway.
I love how you said, I said this stuff not knowing that, I shouldn't have said it. But that's the thing. Ignorance sometimes is interpreted as chutzpah, and it's admired. And they must have admired what you said.
Well, that's why denial works so well.
Yeah. There you go.
Indeed. Well, it's interesting too. The other day, I don't know how I ran across it, but there were some YouTube clips of movie star bloopers from back in the 40s and 50s. And this is not. It's so hard to relate to a lot of those older actors from those movies, because you never, in my age, you don't see them all over social media. You don't know what they're like in real life. Back then, I think it was more magical, because you couldn't just, you had to find the magazine that showed maybe a couple still pictures. You didn't see them all over the news. You didn't see them in real life. And these bloopers to me were just absolutely fascinating, because it turned a lot of these actresses, the Hepburns, into this to, oh, they're doing that, and it made them real.
Where did you find those? I'd love to see those.
Go out on YouTube and just type in old time movie bloopers.
I would do that. I would love that. But many people have talked about how much, just what you said, how much more magical it was when you didn't see people, doing just every day at the grocery store, or like they are when they tweet, or when they just put up a thing of their own.
Absolutely magical to see Humphrey Bogart, trying to film a scene, and he goes, and kid, I couldn't get it right, and he laughs, and everybody on set is laughing. And I've never seen that before. And so growing up at a time when that was so magical.
No, they were larger than life,
larger than life.
And not just in movies, but in athletics. I mean, you take somebody like Babe Ruth. I mean, his reality was amazing enough, but the fiction, the image that people had, wow.
Yeah, it's interesting, and particularly from people back in that day, as opposed to big stars now. And once years ago, I was visiting a friend backstage. Was on Broadway, and he had done a play, and I was in his dressing room when there was a knock on the door, and Gregory Peck walked in, and he said, "Hi, Greg Peck," and put his hands out, and I was just like, I mean, really, those people that we saw when it was magic time like that. Yeah. That really was special.
I mean, because you didn't see them everywhere. And, David and I have been around music business and a lot of bands and even actors associated with a lot of this. So if I run into somebody, if David runs, we're not really fanboy type, maybe if Paul McCartney walked down past the street, I would do that. But primarily, no. But I can see back in the day when people like that were not all over the place, that Gregory Peck walks in and says, "Hi, I'm Greg Peck," I wouldn't know what to say. I would be just very
I might still be that way with McCartney. I don't know.
McCartney, I would be. Okay, I'll give you McCartney. But
well, that's the thing, because I think even Greg Peck or Katharine Hepburn or Humphrey Bogart, if we saw them and we had time to get ready, like they weren't just in our face, because I was at an event recently and I was in like the line where we're getting food, and this woman turned around and it was Viola Davis. And I was just like, "Oh my God, I love your work so much." But if I had had a chance to gather myself, I could have acted like a regular person with her, even though I don't feel that way with her. I just listened to her memoir that she read. She just won a Grammy for it. She became an EGOT with that. She got everything. Oh, nice. But it's an amazing story, an amazing background.
Are there any other actresses that you worked with on set that had you just a little bit in awe of who you were working with, to the point where maybe it was a little hard to concentrate on what you had to do?
Luckily, no. Okay. It's ridiculous. You go to therapy so you can be present. And then if you get present, you're like, why did I want to do this? Because that's why we step back and we're in denial and we don't really face where we are, because it's so scary to be present.
I love it. It's fantastic. Well, you've been on so many things. You've worked with so many people. It's just mind-boggling. I did notice that one of your credits was James at 16, the pilot.
Yes.
That was my favorite show. That was my favorite show back in the day. I was a little bit older than that, but not by much. Yeah. And that was who I aspired to be. Yeah. Just this nice kid, but not a wallflower, which I was. Yeah. I need to watch that pilot again. I'm sure I saw you back then.
I wasn't aware it was the pilot. It's interesting because I was talking to Christy and David not long ago after Brian wasn't it died?
Lance
Kerwin died. Yeah. And they were saying, didn't you do James at 16? I'm like, no, I didn't do it. Yes, you did. And they went through everything. It's you go, you come back. It's like a long time ago. And then I was like really excited. It's like, oh, there's something I forgot about. And then the other day there was something that somebody mentioned. And I'm like, oh, write it down. We can put it on my IMDb page.
Well, you go ahead, David. I was going to say, you've got quite a resume with everything that, sometimes people like David and I sitting here talking with you, as it has been with a lot of musicians and such. For you, it's a day at the office. It is going to work. I mean,
it's never a day.
But
actors are so excited to get to work. If you're on a regular show, like when I was on Lois and Clark for like 3 years, I knew I had a regular job. I didn't get to work in every one out of 7 or 13, and it was like, and even though I knew that this would be over, because where I had a certain status then, because I was a regular on a show. And I knew, because I'm really savvy and I've written all these books for actors to tell them how things work. And I knew that it would be over. I knew that it would be over, but I didn't feel it would be over. So when it was over, it was like, oh, now I'm just a regular person again. And I had to get out into the thing,
I was going to ask you, were there any series you worked on either as a regular or as in a guest role where there was somebody at that point, an unknown actor, where you looked and you said, this person's really going to make it, and then they did?
Well, for instance, Dean and Terry were just regular working actors when we did Lois and Clark, and they'd done a lot of stuff. But first of all, I knew that script, originally I was just on the pilot, and then when they showed clips from the pilot around to the subsidiary markets around to like sell the show, they reacted a lot. It was when I made the Superman suit. And so they added us to the show. But now I can't remember where I was going this. What was the thread that this started?
Well,
about people who you knew were going to make it.
But at that point, Dean and Terry, we were all just so excited to be working. Dean and Terry were excited to be working. And then, you could watch the evolution of Dean and Terry, from Dean and Terry, who were Dean and Terry, to like Dean and Terry, who are now the big stars, and they behave the same way with us. But, at the beginning, somebody would say, oh, let me get you breakfast, or let me give you a chair. And they're like, no, that's right, I can get my own chair. But they and everybody else who become big stars, pretty soon they're like, where's my chair? I'm not saying they did, but I'm just saying that's what happens. People acclimate to what you put in front of them, and it's really hard to resist that. And that's why if you're going to become a giant star, it's really better when you're a little older. And athletes and actors and musicians, it's like, because you're not formed yet and you don't really understand how it's going to go. And even, when I went to New York, I was old, but I was green in the business. So luckily I didn't know I was old for the business, but, I started working right away. And so I still didn't realize that I don't have, everybody else my age, that's my competition. Most of them have been in New York for like 10 years. Mm-hmm. And so that's a lot of maturing, that I just didn't have yet. And as I look back, there were situations that I was in that I might have made more of if I'd known more and understood, not just the way the business works, but the way life is. You just have to move. You can't tell anybody anything. We all have to experience everything.
Yeah. Well, here's a little bit of trivia. Dean Cain's son and my daughter both went to High Point University together, just so you know.
Really? I think that makes you a big deal.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal. It does give me that 7 degrees of separation to you. So,
It's interesting. I had not seen Dean since we wrapped the show like 25 years ago. And then in October, I did a Comic-Con in New Jersey, by the way. Oh. And Dean was there, and he was right here and I was right here at sharing the table. And we were both so happy to see each other. We just fell in each other's arms like, hi, I was so happy to see you.
Now, your first, am I right in that your first television appearance was on Route 66 in the early 60s?
Well, it is, but it isn't. But it is, and this is it. That when I was in high school, we did a one-act play. This is in Dallas, and we took it to the one-act play contest in San Antonio, and we won. And then we were back in Dallas, and this is when television was just, very small. I wasn't anything. And evidently, Sister Marie Josephine, who was our leader for this, knew somebody at WFAA, which is the ABC affiliate, and they staged our show on television. And that was like in 1950. I graduated in 53, so this must have been like 52 or something. So it was that long. But the real professional experience on television was in Route 66 when they came through Dallas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I love it.
But then it was a while before you had another TV gig, right? Were you doing theater in the meantime, or?
Well, no. By then, I was married and had kids.
Oh, I see.
So I was doing commercials, and I was directing because I could get paid for that. And so then I didn't do anything where I was performing other than commercials or like that. we moved to Oklahoma, where I then started a children's theater and did all kinds of things. But it wasn't until I went to New York and then started studying in New York and went there, and I did some off-Broadway there. I never got a chance to do Broadway. I had decided, I came out here for the summer. All New York actors in the summertime, in March, would come to LA for pilot season. But I never understood that, because I had kids and I lived down on the Lower East Side. I didn't live where everybody else did. Everybody else was different because they didn't have kids. And so finally, in the summer of 76, I've worked it out. I'm going to go to LA for the summer. And I call my agent and I said, I'm going to go to LA for the summer. And he said, pilot season is in March. Like, don't you get that? It was like, my kids' birthdays were all in March. I couldn't leave town for that. I had to do all singing, all dancing birthdays. So I came that summer, and luckily my agent called Jane Murray, who cast for Norman Lear. And I went up on several, I don't know whether did I go up on anything else that summer, but that was the first thing I went up on. And I got, it was a 3-part on One Day at a Time. And so I got that work that summer when I was there. Oh, and I think I got something else. But anyway, so I was supposed to go home at the end of the summer, but then I was getting very unhappy and I decided to go home early, maybe the 1st of August instead of, the last of August. And then as I was coming in on the Cary bus going into Manhattan, I thought, oh, I think I was trying to make the decision to move to LA. And that's why I'm so worried and stuff. And so I came home and I talked to Kelly and Christy and I said, I always planned that I would go, but after you all got out of school, how about that? You want to go have an adventure? And they were really great and only told me years later, like, what else could we say? But yes. But anyway, so we said yes. And they didn't start school and we started packing and we were going to leave the 1st of October. And then I got a Broadway show. And I was like, no, I can't do a Broadway show. My kids already stayed out of school. I already have a place for us to live there. Oh my God. And so we moved and, things moved forward and everything was fine. But it wasn't until years later, like maybe 5 years ago, that it occurred to me to go see what happened to that show that I did not do. And I couldn't remember the name of it, but I knew that Hans Conried and Molly Picone were in it. So I went to the Broadway version of IMDb. I looked it up. That show opened and closed in one night.
I think it was a good sign that you couldn't remember the name. Because if it was famous, you would have remembered it. Right. Wow, one night. Good move.
Right. But, I could have stayed. But, it still would have been on Broadway, even if it died. But the thing is that when I came back, when I was back in town, they wrote another episode of One Day at a Time for the guy who played my husband and I. And so we did that. And then I was already, then they called Norman. It was just an offer only. I got to do this very famous episode of All in the Family, and so I wouldn't have had those opportunities if I had stayed and done that. And did you all see Everything Everywhere at the same time? This movie? Yeah. Well, it's like you could take this road or you could take this road and this would happen or that would happen. And, this is what happened.
And that's a classic.
The family episode was I guess for its time was pretty groundbreaking. Did you, were there people who would look at you askance after that because they thought, oh, she's a lesbian?
Well, no, here's the thing. There's so many things about that episode, which they won an Emmy for. So I never thought a thing about it when I was doing it. I didn't think, oh, it's scary to play. No, I just went to the job. Yeah. And so then I only heard this like 25 years later. So my family in Texas were very excited because On the Family, big show, right? So my aunt and uncle from Nebraska were visiting, and my brother and his wife came over, and they're all going to watch K on All in the Family. And beforehand, they're all looking forward to seeing it, blah, blah, blah. And my brother told me years later that when it was over, no one said a word. No one mentioned the show. They just went back to, are we going to have supper? What are you going to have? What are you drinking?
But, you think about it, One Day at a Time, Barney Miller, All in the Family. again, the credits of the things that you have been in is absolutely amazing. But one of the funniest scenes for me that you've ever been in was on How I Met Your Mother.
I love that show. That the script was so funny. Those guys were such great writers.
Such a great show. And that scene where she switches out the box and you're talking about this family heirloom.
Well, you know what's funny is, it's played a lot. It's played a lot. And so I always think, well, I was just so funny in that. That's why it's played so much. And I went back recently and I looked at the whole episode, not just my part. And it's like, that's the hooker episode.
Well, the whole episode's great. The whole episode's fantastic. But that particular scene is just so well done. Everything about the scene, everybody's facial features, everything they do, everything you do, just perfect. And I can still see it vividly. Kills me. Absolutely slays me. Very well done.
I need to watch that episode now because
it's really fun. Yeah, and you can't let anybody tell you about it. You just have to discover it.
I can't ruin it for him. It's just such
I've forgotten it all. Barney Miller was one of my favorite shows of all time. Well, as was All in the Family, but that's up there for everybody.
Well, and it was at that same time. I think I did it that summer, and I did the Barney Miller, and then I did Joe's World. Not Joe's World. What was it? Joe. The
Joe's World. It says here on Wikipedia.
Well, no, but Joe's World was another show I did, but the one that Florence Stanley was in, they had a spinoff of Barney Miller. Fish. They did Fish. Yeah. So then I did 2 Fish. So I got to work, and of course, I'm a New York actress, so I don't really know anything, When I got to New York, I'll tell you a story about George Segal in a minute about New York. But it's like, so I'm here, and I don't really get. Luckily, it's like when I said, "Well, I won't stay here for all that," so I don't really get Norman Lear, what's his name for Barney Miller? All of a sudden, I can't.
Hal Linden.
No, the
Danny Arnold.
Danny Arnold. They were just gods. Only I was able not to know that. I just thought they were regular people because you're not from that place and you don't know the culture there. But so when I was in New York, after a few years, I did a film called A Touch of Class, and I got to go to Spain, which was fabulous with George Segal and Linda Jackson, and so I was so green. I was so green. And I also, there was no IMDb to look up who I'm working with and what they might have done before. So, there's 2 terrible stories about this. So the first story is Mel Frank, who wrote and directed and won an Academy Award for A Touch of Class, had also written with his partner, Norm Panama, all the road movies, all the Bob Hope road movies and all this stuff. So Mel Frank was like, Hollywood, whatever, so we're in Spain now and we're at a little cocktail party and I am talking to Mel's wife and I say, I have to hide my face. This script is so good. Is this Mel's first script?
Oh my God.
And she was so classy. She said, "Oh my dear." And she starts telling me all the things that he has done. And then she says, "It will be our little secret." And then George, I said something just as naive to George. I can't remember. And his wife was just so offended by my not knowing who he was because I treated him like whatever it was. It was clear I didn't know who he was. And George was so great because he said, she hasn't been here that long. She doesn't know. He was just so sweet. He was just so lovely.
When I was a kid, and I'm sure this was the case for all of us, sometimes I would see people in shows or in movies, and as far as I knew, that was the first thing they ever did. Any show you can think of when you're a kid, you have no idea that these people, had a career before. Yeah. So get exactly what you're talking about.
Except it's different when you're 8 or 10 or 12 than when you're 32.
No, of course it is. But I don't know. The one thing I remember about George Segal was he was on Johnny Carson one night, and Ed McMahon is sitting next to him. And I don't remember what prompted this, but he took off his tie and he said, "I wore this tie in touch of class." And he looked toward to Ed and he handed it to him. He said, "And that's why I'm giving it to you."
Oh, wow.
To intimate that Ed was a classy gentleman. I thought that was a very classy move.
That was
for some reason I remember that from 50 years later or so.
Because that was an unusual thing for somebody to do.
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah. And I became a George Segal fan because of that. What do you remember about the people on Barney Miller? Because I just love that show so much.
They were just darling. They were just, but the thing is, it's not the people on Barney Miller. Yes, they were great. But the thing to remember about Barney Miller was that Barney Miller, so Danny wrote all the scripts, Danny and I guess his writing room. But let's say you start work on Monday and you're going to tape in front of a live audience on Friday, right? So Monday you get together and you're going to, the way you usually do it, you read through the whole thing and you start blocking it, you get ready for the weekend. On Monday, on Barney Miller, let's see, do I have anything here? You get like one piece of paper. That's all there is. There's like 2 pages. That's all there is. So there's a director there and you're doing this 2 pages all day long. And then about 5, you're like waiting for pages. Are pages going to come? And so then maybe pages would come and you do like 2 more pages the next day. But the thing was that as somebody on the set who was a regular, maybe it was one of the guys, it's like, it doesn't really matter what you do or what they are, because on Friday morning, when they tape on Friday night, Danny's going to come down and do the whole thing over anyway. So directors, you had to either be really learning and just wanted to be there, or have a very thick skin and not get your feelings hurt, that you weren't really getting to direct the show, but it was the same way on Fish, because I don't know what they were doing over there, during the week. And I guess they were trying a whole bunch of stuff, but that was the thing that was remarkable about that show.
And doing a live audience show, what kind of pressure is that? Not only for the regulars on the show, but as somebody who's doing a guest stint on the show, the taping is live. That's got to be a different ball game.
Well, if you come from theater, it's not.
If you come from theater, I guess it's
it's fun. It's just, oh, great, we've got an audience, so it wasn't anything. And of course, again, the first thing I did here was One Day at a Time, and that was a very cool group. Also, it was really interesting. So the first day on set, when we were starting to rehearse, I'm not the family. So I'm not going to go sit with the family. I'm just going to sit over to the side. So I sit over to the side. And then Mackenzie, who was like a big 16 at the time, that's how young she was. She comes over and is like, "Hey, come on, come sit with us," and so forth. She was just so great. And Bonnie was great. The whole team over there was really terrific. But no, and Bonnie came from theater, so many of us have come from theater. And now we've been, and when you're in New York, when it's de rigueur. And when you're in New York, you just, as a matter of, you hate the LA actors. You just hate the LA actors. And you're waiting for that big earthquake where California falls into the ocean, and then the New York actors are going to get all the work.
We're still waiting.
I know. But what's so funny is, almost everybody here was in New York first. And they've now forgotten that we hated all this. Because when I was first here, those became my best friends. I would be at an audition and you'd be sitting there and there'd be somebody across the room and something would happen and you would go, "Are you from New York?" "Yes." "How long have you been here?" "I just got here." "Oh, sit by me." We were our own little club, the people who just got off the boat.
Well, and you've written a number of books on the industry as far as writing or dealing with agents or or being an actor. Obviously, when you were younger, you said you were teaching children, and you hung on to that ability to teach, which translated into writing about that, which I find fascinating. So, can you give me some tips on what it takes to be a special actor?
Well, here's the thing. First of all, I love teaching. I taught in high school at the school where I had gone, and I think it's interesting. You saw the poker face, or you haven't seen it?
Yes, I saw it.
I have not. Yeah.
So for instance, in the script, my character Betty is described as a busybody. So the script writers and the director both came to me before, they're talking about the script, and they said, blah, blah, busybody. And I said, a busybody does not think they're a busybody. They just think they're helping. And they're like, oh, I guess that's so. And now I think about it, I guess I am a busybody, because I'm always saying, hey, did you try this? And I went there and it was really good. And so that's part of teaching. You're the first person who's ever made the connection between my books, which are teaching because they're how-to books, is just an extenuation of that. And the first book I wrote because, well, there were several reasons. One of them had to do with Kelly and Christy, but the preamble to that was when I was in New York, and for the first 2.5 years, right on the cusp of 3, it was really just hand to mouth, and getting yourself in the system and so forth. But then by the 3rd year, I did Joe, which was an independent film that ended up on many 10 best lists. And it made a star of Peter, and it put me in the system. But at that point, up until that point, I had been working freelance doing commercials, and I got the audition to go into Joe from an office where they sent me in for commercials, but they also did legit. And they kind of sent in, I think, every picture of anybody who was anywhere at all, the right age, size, color, whatever, everybody went in on that. But when I got that, and then I got the New York Times reviews, so people who were not interested in me before, all of a sudden I had a lot of new best friends. And so, but I still was working freelance. And so Jay Wolf, who was a well-known casting director, then called me in for an audition, and he said, Kay, it doesn't look good that you don't have an agent. You really should get an agent. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, how do you choose? I only knew, you know about William Morrison like that, but that's too big. And then unless you have a friend who's at another agency, you don't even know the names of other agencies, at least at that time, because we didn't have IMDb and stuff. And so he said, well, I'm gonna get you an appointment with my friend. Maybe he can give you some advice about how you choose an agent. And so I went in, and still green and not knowing. This was like one of the great God agents at William Morrison. All of a sudden, his name's gone. It was right there a minute ago. Anyway, he was Meryl Streep's agent and so forth. And he was very nice, and he's talking to me. And I'm just, still this guileless person. And I go, well, I want you, And he said, well, I don't know. He said, there's other people in the office I would have to talk to first. And so, come back in 2 weeks. And 2 weeks later, I came back, and he said, well, you're too old for us. He said, at your age, they had Eileen Heckert, who had just won an Academy Award for Butterflies Are Free. And he said, to be your age, to be our client, you would have to be that far along, which I understood. And so I went back, and I still didn't know how to choose an agent. And I got a manager, blah, blah, blah. But after I moved out here and I was securing the business and all this, Kelly and Christy were writing and producing their own records. And my son was getting a PhD. And I thought, well, I've always wanted to know, if every agent in the world wanted you, how would you do that? So I'm going to write this book. And if people are interested or not, but it's going to be my PhD. So I began calling up agents, which was really scary. It's just as scary. I mean, yes, some people know who I am, but still it was scary. But once I would call them up and say, could I come and interview you? I'm writing this book, and I would interview them. Then you have to come up with a book. You can't have taken their time. So I wrote that first book, and I had friends who were in publishing, and they would get it to people, and people would say, this is a great book. We really like it, but it's too small a marketplace for us. And so finally, my friend said, well, what should she do? And they said she should publish it herself, which was great for me because I had information that was getting cold by the minute. And so then I started and I published my first book. And then I went and took it to Drama Bookshop in New York and Samuel French here and sold it on consignment, like 6 copies. And then I got a call from New York and it's like, from all of them, we want more, because there were no books like this at the time. Yeah. And then New York said, Drama Bookshop said, where's the New York book? We want a book about the New York agents. So I moved to New York for a month and interviewed those people and did that book. And then Samuel French, there was a woman there who distributed, and she said, I want a book I can sell all over the world. And so I wrote How to Sell Yourself as an Actor, which I consider the best one, because it's really a marketing book. And it really also deals with how hard it is to be an actor and how you can't kill yourself because you could get a job tomorrow. You never know. Right. You know. So, and then I wrote a book for writers and directors because they got in touch with me. And then it was like, look, I'm really an actor. And I would update these every 2 or 3 years. And so anyway, and then I wrote a party book, but then it was like, that's it. And a couple of years ago, I went back and wrote 2 New York and in LA. And then last year I did How to Sell Yourself, a new edition.
And those are available at kcallan.com?
No, not really. You can write me at kcallan.com and I can do that in New York and LA, but now Drama Bookshop, Amazon, you know, okay. Other outlets are selling those. I'm not really selling those anymore. But okay. You can write me and I'll tell you where to go get them.
Gotcha.
Was there ever, Kay, was there ever a role, a part that you auditioned for that you didn't get that you really, really wish you had?
I only think of one in the recent past, and I will cloud it for what it was. So I got this audition. I'm like, oh my God, I'm dying to work with that actor. I can hardly wait. Oh, this is so great. This is so great. And then I didn't get it. And I was so disappointed. And then I saw the film when it came out. And it was like the part that I had, which was like this, was like this. And the whole movie did not hang together at all. It was just like, nobody's going to see this movie. And then I was like, well, you just never know, you know, what's going to happen. But I was disappointed. But mostly, I don't think that I ever had a part that then somebody, you know, like, you know, the world stopped. You know, it's another part. I have to tell myself that every time because you know, you act like, you know, choose me. It's like not doing the part on Broadway. You know, and I've always known, as much as I would still like to do Broadway, it's just another theater. After you've opened and you're like, I'm on Broadway, it's just another theater. You know?
Yeah, I got to say, you bounced back really well after the explosive ending. That you
if they had only listened to me, they'd only taken my advice.
How did you get Poker Face?
Well, Poker Face is written and directed by, I did Knives Out, that film Knives Out, Ryan Johnson. Yes. And so Poker Face is his new anthology streaming series on Peacock. And so it was so exciting. It was so exciting. They called and they said, blah, blah, you have this. And I got on a plane and went to New York and I got to do that. It was fun.
Really, really neat sets on that series too. The set design, whoever.
Well, on the one you saw with me, anyway, we shot in those places.
Yeah.
And that zoo, for instance, that zoo is on the campus of a high school, of a sleepaway high school, very obviously very ritzy, swell high school. Evidently, a very alert. It won't make any difference. Evidently, the person who had that land and who contributed to that very expensive high school was a lover of animals and established this zoo there. And then now if you go to that high school, you can study those things, but it has nothing to do with the show. It's just that we were there where there were animals.
Just that's very cool in and of itself. Just I love to look at set design. You know, David and I always hark back to these shows from the late 50s into throughout the 60s. And I love early 60s Technicolor movies. I watch it nowadays and I just love set design.
Well, see, that's one of the things about Poker Face is they've shot it with some kind of filter or something. It makes it look like those things because they're trying to do like a Columbo kind of thing, you know, Murder of the Week, anthology, guest stars. And so the first time I saw it, I'm like, this just seems so different. And then finally I was talking to somebody who understands about lights and stuff. And they said, yeah, they did this, so it would look like that. And it has its own special look.
Yeah, it does have its own special look. And you're right. You use a different kind of filter with the way it's shot. It just gives you a whole different feeling.
Yeah.
It just gives you a feeling of a certain time and era, different place. It's just really, really neat.
We're talking about older shows, and obviously there were things you could say and do that you can no longer do now. What do you think about the whole PC movement? Do you think it's hurt television and movies, or do you think it's helped?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. See, because I'm old and I look at things sometimes and I think that's too far, and so I don't mind it, nothing. It had, we don't really mind anything that hasn't affected us personally.
Good point. Yeah,
it's true. It's absolutely true.
Yeah.
But it just amazing everything you've been involved with. I love the fact that you've written a lot of these books.
I'm going to be going to Amazon, Kay. That's all I can say.
Yeah. No, it's really quite something. And you're still going. What do you have coming up? Do you have any auditions?
I actually had an audition before now. I had to get back home and so forth. And now, since the pandemic, you don't get to go to a casting director's office anymore. You have to tape yourself. And for a while, I taped myself, but then your relatives are getting sick of it, They want to come over and do it. And I found a place I can go not far from here and pay not that much and have my auditions, taped for me. So I went over this morning and had an audition and get back to me, who knows whether I'll get it or not. But I have, I shot a movie in October in Switzerland, actually. That they're still editing, and that should be out before the end of the year, I would think. It's called So Torn, like sewing a dress, SEW Torn. It's a thriller. Right. And then I did a 2-character film that we just got distribution for. I did a play at a theater over in Burbank about 4 or 5 years ago. This 2-character play, and so then during the pandemic. Somebody decided that they would like to make film out of it. So they rewrote it and so we shot that. And so now that's been sold, and pretty soon it'll be someplace.
Oh, good luck. How long do you think you're going to keep working? Do you have any plans to stop?
No. Actors. This takes back to Hal Linden. When he was doing Barney Miller, he would do the series and then he'd get another job, during the hiatus. And somebody, interviewed him, like, aren't you ever going to retire? Aren't you ever going to relax? And he said, I'm relaxed all the time. The show isn't on, I don't think actors retire. The show business may retire you, but we don't ever choose that. I don't think.
I saw Hal Linden up in Bucks County. He was playing with a band, playing the clarinet and doing his music, which was absolutely amazing to see, and got to talk to him afterwards a little bit.
I think he still works in the theater too.
Yeah, sure he does. Yeah, sure he does.
Here's something, Kay. My dad, Hal Linden, William Shatner, and Leonard Nimoy were all born a week apart.
Oh wow!
Four very, very talented Jewish men. Unfortunately, Leonard Nimoy's no longer with us, but the other 3 still.
Were they born in the same town, or just they were born in the same?
No, just within same day. No. My dad was born in Israel, so I'm pretty sure not.
And what did your dad do?
Well, he's been in real estate most of his life.
Yeah.
He and I are very different. He's always been kind of a risk taker, and he's really charming. He's amazing. And we actually had him he's 91. We had him on the show about a year ago, and he still got it.
He could have been an actor.
Fascinating.
He could have been an actor. He's that kind of guy. He's got that kind of energy.
Well, he had that charisma. He was very, very cool. Just nothing rattled him. Yeah. I'm so much the opposite. I'm a bundle of nerves, but he's like this all the time. And he could have been an actor if he wanted. He could have done anything he wanted.
Yeah.
Well, it's no wonder, Kay, you've been so successful, because you're absolutely beautiful. You're vibrant. You're engaging. You're intelligent. You're funny. You've just got it. And
now the question is, are you single? Because Mark's looking.
Yeah, you know, I
actually, yeah, you know, I was thinking you said your father's 91. It's like, okay, I actually need somebody a little younger, but
my dad's 94, so okay. I'm just
good health, you know.
Absolutely wonderful, though. What a great career you've had, and you continue to have.
No, you are remarkable. I mean, you have so much energy, which is real. Do you have that just naturally? Have you been? Do you exercise? Do you have a regimen of any kind?
Well, this is who I am. I've always been this person. I've always been very positive. And I was talking to somebody about this morning or yesterday about exercise because, you know, I'm one of those people who picks up things quickly and never gets any better, but I can do it. And so, you know, when I was little, you know, I played baseball and whatever they were playing in the neighborhood. And then when I taught school, I taught PE, you know, and I taught volleyball and I taught basketball and tumbling because when I was in high school, I'd had some tumbling and I learned more about that, but just to a certain level, you know, I don't get up high. But anyway, I've always exercised and I can't remember when I didn't walk every day. And I was talking to this person yesterday who doesn't walk, who's like, I don't know, maybe they're 45 or 50. And it's like, you need to walk. And if possible, it's hard for you to go back and start when you were 15. But the sooner you start walking and exercising, the more vital you will be and stay, you know, so you got to do that. And for instance, during the pandemic, I walked about 10,000 steps a day. I'd walk 5,000 in the morning and 5 in the evening, but I got John Grisham novels from the library that were in my ear. And so I would walk and then I had told myself I couldn't listen unless I was walking. So I'd be walking and it was time, but it was like, no, I don't know what's going to happen. And so I would walk further.
Well, Kay, I walk my dog, my rescue dog, 6 times a day.
Oh, that's good.
At least.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to podcasts and music, and I get on my co-host here, Mr. David Bash, who I love like a brother, and I'm always concerned about his health. And I said, David, you got to get out there and walk. And he goes, I just can't walk. I said, well, put the earphones on and listen to the music.
To be fair, in 2015, I had a heart attack that almost killed me. And after that, for a year and a half, I walked regularly every day. And then I just got lazy, unfortunately. And my wife keeps trying to get me to start walking again, and we really should, but just haven't.
Well, really, if you would find something, a thriller, if you like thrillers, something to put in your ear and just say, I can't listen to it unless I'm walking, and make it pleasant for yourself. And I walk, there's a park not far from me. So 3 days a week or every other day, I walk to the park, and they also have some machines there. And I do something for my arms and then something with my legs. And then I walk back home. And then the other days I go park someplace at the Ralph's actually, and then walk up in the hills over there and walk for, 45 minutes or something. Then I come back and shop and come home. But in other words, it's all a habit.
Yeah.
Just make the habit, and then pretty soon you don't have to think about it.
I'm just ganging up on my friend David because
no, it's okay. And for that year and a half, I really did feel that way.
You look really healthy though, and so keep it that way and do that. Well, if your wife will walk with you, great. But otherwise, get in your ear.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll be waiting to hear how you're doing.
Thank you. I will let you know.
The next time I see you at one of these music things, I'm going to say, David, have you been walking?
Have you been walking?
Please, just stay on me. Somebody needs
to. I love it. It's been a fantastic chat, Kay. This has really been special. Thank you so much. I just said again. Now I'm thinking about it, but thank you so much for joining us, and best wishes with continued success in the business, in the system, as you called it, which was quite interesting. And thanks again. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay grateful.
Yeah, success in life as well.
Yes,
thank you. And healthy. Healthy is the top of the list. You got to stay healthy, or you can't do any of the other things.
Yes, it is. Great. Well, have a wonderful rest of your. You're late. It's still late afternoon out with you guys. I'm towards the evening now.
Yeah, it's like 4:10 or something here.
Yes.
But we appreciate you being here on Material Issues.
Thank you. I'm happy I got to do it. Thank you for inviting me.
Our pleasure.
And God bless you. Have a great night, Kay.
Thank you. You too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Mio.
I got to put David back up here and take K down. Well, that was what a wonderful experience.
She's amazing. I mean,
absolutely amazing.
She's. Thank you, Tim. Yeah, I mean, she's certainly, she's not shy about stating her age. So for somebody, I mean, for anyone, she's just exuberant. But for somebody her age, I mean, she's sharp as a tack. The things she remembers her memory is incredible. Well, I can see why she's still getting hurt.
These TV people and movie people saying, well, that person has it. And you always wonder, well, what is it? What do they talk about it? And then you talk to someone like Kay, and you see what it is. It's just, as I told her, there's a vibrancy, there's an engaging quality. Just everything about her is an it. And it's no wonder she's been able to be as successful as she's been.
And if she had been able to start earlier, no doubt she would have had way more leading lady parts, and she probably, she could have definitely become a star. But family has to come first sometimes.
Oh, sure.
So I'm glad she was able to get the career that she's had.
And the books that she's put out, about the business.
I need to get at least one of those.
She's covered it all, and just what a I use the word again, engaging guest, and a very, very, very good one here on Material Issues again. Wow.
I love that she was in the movie Joe. I don't know if you remember that movie. Yeah. I had not seen it as a kid, and I wouldn't have gotten it even if I had at that point. But I remember there was a and I guess this dovetails with the show that Kay had guested on. There was a Mad Magazine parody of All in the Family called Gall in the Family Fair. Yes. You might remember.
I remember that.
Archie was Starchy Bunker Hill, and Edith was Meathead instead of Mike, and it was Glorioski and Meek. And I remember Glorioski and Meek wanted Archie to stay home with them that evening, but he was going to take Edith out to the movies. And Meek says, "But Starchy, how many times can you see Joe?"
I do remember that.
He said, you know that scene where Joe almost kills the hippies? Well, I'm going to see it until Joe gets it right. I guess it was a real Republican kind of, movie back then. I had no idea, but even though I never saw the movie, I could glean from context that it had to be that way. But
that's why I love this show, doing it with you and the guests that we get, because there's just so many roads we go down that is so darn interesting, and that's why we get great comments from the people who've been commenting over here about the great
Absolutely.
show. Absolutely.
And boy, are we going to be going down some different roads soon. But
yes, who do we got coming up, David?
Well, we'll talk about the 3 guests that we have scheduled next week. A gentleman who has become very well known for being Paul McCartney's guitar player, but he's a musician in his own right. He has a band called the Bayonets, which are going to be putting out a record, and he's going to be promoting it. But yeah, he's quite a talent, and I'm glad that we had him at IPO one time. Mr. Brian Ray up next week, March 8th.
Wow.
And on March 15th, this is completely out of left field, but we are going to have a dyed-in-the-wool escort, professional escort, on Material Issues. And John Borak, come on, I know that's you. Anyway, not only is she a very high-priced professional escort, has lots of very rich clients who really pay for companionship, because she's not only beautiful, but she's a very, very well-spoken, interesting individual. She has several degrees. She's a pilot, and she's just a very engaging person. I saw her on another podcast, and I said, "Wow, I need to get to know this person." On a non-professional
transactional basis.
Yeah, I couldn't have. I'd have to sell my record collection to afford 2 minutes with her. She's that high priced, but apparently she's worth it. And we really want to talk to her about the business and a lot of misconceptions that people have about it. A lot of people think it's just sex. No, nothing could be further from the truth. It's a lot more than that. And in her case, that's why she's successful. Her name's Amy Taylor, and we're going to have her on Material Issues on March 15th. And you know this is going to be a very, not just interesting, but very enlightening episode. And she's looking forward to the opportunity to talk about what she does. And again, to dispel any sort of misconceptions about what that business is. So we're really looking forward to that. And then what do we have? A few weeks later, we have somebody you brought in.
So we have. I mean, so we might have a 1 or 2 week gap there where it is just you and I, and we'll get back to
but you never know.
And some things that people like. But
get Jackie back on for another trivia.
Get Jackie back on, Jackie Fox from the Runaways for another trivia.
Get my ass kicked again, but okay.
But April 12th is going to be our 99th episode, right before our big 100th episode. But we've got a wonderful guest, and you probably see the EP right back here. It's been hanging out, but that's the EP for their first, Dance It, Never Say Never, Romeo Void. We are going to have the lead singer, Deborah Ayo of Romeo Void, who hasn't really done much as far as interview material for a long time.
Nice.
They've got there's a record coming out on Record Store Day, April 22nd, and it's a live show from the Mojave facility somewhere in San Francisco. I'm not familiar with it, but it's a 1980 live show they're putting out for Record Store Day. So Deborah is going to be on here to talk about her career in Romeo Void, that Never Say Never, and of course, Girl in Trouble is a temporary thing, was a top 20 hit, wonderful.
And a very groundbreaking video for sure.
So she's looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to that. That's coming up April 12th here on Material Issues. And again, we've always got irons in the fire. It's just, you never know. Tomorrow, someone may finally say, yes, this date I can make it. And we've got things going on that'll be interesting if we can make them happen.
I mean, we're just thankful to be able to continue to do this show. It's completely fun for us. We and that's the only reason we're doing this, because we have fun. Yeah. And we want to bring great guests to everybody watching, and it's always been really eye-opening. That's been maybe the best part about this. We learn things that we never even would have suspected. So yeah. Thank you all very much for watching and allowing us to do this, and spending your valuable time with us, really.
Yeah. And here on Facebook, you can join the group, and over at YouTube, it's materialissues.com. You can subscribe there, and we always update you, usually Monday, Tuesday before Wednesday, just confirming everything that's happening. You get just a post from us saying, here's definitely happening, and you tune in and enjoy Material Issues. I'm looking forward to the next few weeks and leading up to our 100th episode mid-April. Wow. Great stuff. Well, thank you, my friend. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see everybody back here next Wednesday on Material Issues.
You have a wonderful evening and rest of your week as well. And everyone, thank you so much.
Cheers. Good night.